The other thing that I rely heavily on with Google Calendar is the task list. And so there's a million ways that you can make a to-do list. You can make it in, a Word doc or a Google Doc. There's lots of apps for this. The thing that works for me is you can make a task instead of an event on Google Calendar. And so every day I have here's everything that I need to get done by the end of the day. There's recurring tasks that I set up, and it's literally like everything that I need to do. Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of the Master the Media podcast. I'm your host, Amy Gorin, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about systems that help you as an entrepreneur, especially for me as a parent, as a new mom. That's what I'm really excited to share with you today. Before we jump into that, I just want to share that we are having a free masterclass on working with brands. It's happening December 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you'd like to grab your free spot, you can go to masterthemedia.co/masterclass. And if you're unable to make that live, you can sign up and you'll be sent the replay. So I chose today's topic because I was recently talking with a fellow dietitian entrepreneur friend, and we were talking about, how do you keep your life organized as a business owner, as a mom, as a wife, as a partner. And I started sharing kind of the things that keep me sane. And my friend told me, you should do a podcast episode about that. So here we are. And here we are talking about the systems that can help you stay sane as an entrepreneur. So I have my baby is a little bit over 4 months old. Her name's Annabelle, and she's amazing. And I am still kind of navigating, how do I juggle being a $1 million business owner, being a mom, and being a wife, and also taking care of myself and prioritizing the self-care that I need as a human. And the answer is I'm still figuring it out. But I think I've done a pretty good job so far. And so I wanted to share what's working with you, and we can also talk a little bit about what's not working. So I went into parenthood very intentionally. My husband and I had a lot of conversations about, if we decide to be parents, we want this, we don't want that. And so a couple of things were really important to both of us. One is like, okay, yes, we're parents, but we also are us. We have spent, I've spent 40 something years figuring out what works for me as a human. And I didn't want to give that part up for me. So for me, I need the things every week that keep me sane and functioning and optimal. I get acupuncture every week. I get a massage every week. I do Reiki, which is energy healing, every other week. And so those are some of the things that are non-negotiables for me. I also wanted to be present with my child. I work from home, so does my husband. And it felt right to me to keep her at home. Right now, we have a part-time nanny. And I also wanted to do my best to have time where I could be home with her during the week. So, yes, I run a business. It's a $1 million business, and I stay home with my child 1 to 2 days a week. And that is possible. And I want to talk about how that's possible, how I keep everything organized. So I say the biggest thing that helps, obviously, I'm going to kind of glaze over the childcare because that's the obvious thing. We decided to go with having a part-time nanny who comes to our house, and she's become our friend, and I get to just pop in and out and hang out with my child. And that was part of the conversation when we hired her. We're like, look, we both work from home. We, if I am having a light day, even if I'm not, I want to be able to pop in and see her. That's personally why we didn't choose daycare, although we might revisit that when she's a little bit older. Now, as far as we started off wanting, we were like, my husband and I were like, okay, how about we get the part-time nanny for 3 days a week and we watch her for 2 days a week. Right now it's my busy season. We're going, I came back from maternity leave. We jumped right into exhibiting at FNC, which is the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo. it's a big trade show for dietitians. So we went right into having a booth there, running a huge event. I came back. We launch. We had a masterclass and a Q&A and all these virtual events for Master the Media. And in a few days, I am actually, I will literally be there physically when this episode airs. We are exhibiting at ACLM, which is the American Academy of Lifestyle Medicine conference. And so it's been very, very busy. So not to say I won't be able to stay home with her more come, the next season. But right now, what we figured out works is being home with a baby 1 day a week and having the nanny 4 days a week. From there, the thing that keeps us really organized, because we have multiple people taking care of our child, is Google Calendar. So if you are not a user of Google Calendar, this is not sponsored or endorsed by Google or Gmail or anything, but I'm a huge fan. And so the way that me and my husband have started to really rely on Google Calendar is by having multiple calendars that we use as a family. So what I mean by that is, of course, I have my work calendar, my husband has his work calendar, and so we give each other permissions to view each other's work schedule. From there, we have a calendar that is created for our nanny's schedule. And so it has, if her schedule changes, we change that calendar, and that lets us know, okay, well, there's a gap this day, so that means we have to adjust our schedules to watch the baby. From there, we even my husband actually made the schedule. I was like, he came up with the idea. So I'm giving Lawrence all the credit for this. He actually created baby watching calendars. And so, there's morning and evening, and we do still have our night nanny right now. TBD on when we are going to give her up. At first, it was October. Now it's maybe November. We're not really sure. It depends on when the baby's sleeping through the night. But so we have a calendar for that's like the day nanny, the night nanny, and I know like not everyone is able to do these things, but I'm just telling you what works for my family. And then I have, right now I'm the baby watcher on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Actually, Monday is kind of like the flip flop day, and then my husband has the alternate days. Those are for the mornings, and then we also have a schedule for the evenings. Between like when the childcare is at our house. And so that makes it where, not that we won't both watch her at the same time, but if I have to work late, or one of us wants to sleep late, or one of us has a doctor's appointment, it makes it so that we can schedule those appointments during, I can schedule my doctor's appointment, say, Thursday is the day that we're both home with the baby. So if I need to go to a doctor's appointment, I can schedule that during the time slot that I know for sure my husband's going to be watching the baby. So that makes it where we're not like running around like chickens with our, like our heads cut off. The first few weeks that we were home with the baby, and it was kind of like, the first few weeks we both spent like 24/7 with her. And then once I started kind of slowly going back to work, we were kind of like, it was like, what are we doing? And it was a little bit stressful because I didn't know if I could go take a long shower or if I could sleep in without having a full-on conversation about it. And now I know, okay, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my days to sleep in a little bit more if I need to. So that's one thing. The other thing that I rely heavily on with Google Calendar is the task list. And so there's a million ways that you can make a to-do list. You can make it in, a Word doc or a Google Doc. There's lots of apps for this. The thing that works for me is you can make a task instead of an event on Google Calendar. And so every day I have, here's everything that I need to get done by the end of the day. There's recurring tasks that I set up, and it's literally like everything that I need to do, from like feeding the cats. Like I feed our cats dinner, my husband feeds them breakfast. I have it on my to-do list just because I do not obviously want to forget that. And right now I'm in a season of, there's a lot in my head with taking care of a baby, running a business, and I just don't want to even chance forgetting something. There's things in there like, pay the nanny. There's things in there, you know, like order groceries, things like that. And then I have my work tasks, you know, review social media posts, write newsletter, marketing content, things like that. It gives me a great sense of satisfaction to click the little checkbox when I've completed something. And, you know, then I can, of course, there's pretty much every day there's things that I don't have time to complete and I move those to, you know, a future date. Um, that's what works for me. You can also create a task during the middle of the day where you're like, okay, at 11 a.m., I'm going to call this doctor and make an appointment. And then you can click that off as completed. And then additionally, another way that I use my calendar. So I guess this is really largely not, it's definitely an episode about systems, but we're having a big conversation about calendars right now. Another way that I use my calendar is blocking out time. So I know, for instance, you know, every Friday I record a podcast episode. Sometimes it's earlier in the week. I literally block out an hour on my calendar to record that. And if I get to it earlier in the week, awesome. But it's just like I don't want to overbook myself for Friday, for instance, and have too much on my plate to where I'm like, oh gosh, I was supposed to do that and I didn't have time to do it. Same things where if I know I need to review a whole bunch of content, I might make a 2 or 3 hour block where I know that I can sit down uninterrupted and get through that content and make sure that I have time to do that. And so that's really, really important. So those are really the strategies that are working the best for me right now as someone who is new to this, like, how do I juggle? You know, I was juggling a lot before I had a baby. Now I'm juggling even more. And I want to actually spend intentional time with my child. And like I said, you know, I'm a big fan of adding things to my calendar, and that includes, you know, making sure that I have time every week to get acupuncture, to have a massage, to do all the things that I do to take care of myself, so that I can be the best version of myself for my child, for my partner, and also for my business. And so that's really important to me. So I hope that this helped you even in some small way. I'm always interested in hearing what works for you guys too. So please, you know, share, like, you know, I'd love to hear what works. If you want to reach out and let me know. And then as a reminder, we are holding a masterclass on how to work with brands. It's happening December 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern. And you can go to masterthemedia.co/masterclass to grab your spot.